Friends, would y'all like to hear a story that you're not going to learn in school about Black history? J. Edgar Hoover had to be the definition of delusion and confusion. He was a director of the FBI for 48 years, and he also was instrumental in helping to found the organization. Now, I know y'all probably wondering, how is this man a part of Black history when he Black like this and not like this? Or is he? But Mr. Hoover was allegedly hiding some secrets. Targeting folk like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he considered them an enemy of the state. When whole time, allegedly, he is a direct descendant of a slave. There was a young girl that was taken from her home in Africa when she was 15 years old and was brought over to the U.S. of A., where she was purchased by a man named Felix Allen. Now, Felix Allen was a landowner and a slave owner. He changed her name to Sarah and S.A'd her, giving birth to a child by the name of Elizabeth Allen. But the madness doesn't stop there. Felix also went on to S.A. his own daughter Elizabeth and have a child named Emily. Felix and Sarah's daughter Elizabeth was able to pass as a white woman, being that she was mixed race. She was also S.A. by a man named William Hoover. William Hoover wanted to purchase her and move her to D.C. so that he could marry her. And of course, she just had to go with him because she was a slave. Well, nothing she can do. She ain't had no rights. So that's just what William did. William S.A'd her. They had a child named John T. Hoover. And John T. Hoover and Elizabeth William all moved to D.C. and lived together, leaving behind Emily, who was born to Elizabeth from Elizabeth's father. But here's where it gets deeper, friends. Emily was then purchased by a man named Christian Hoover Sr. He had two sons, Christian Kit Hoover and William Hoover. Both brothers took turns essaying Emily. And Emily eventually had a child by Christian Kit Hoover named Ivory Hoover, and sometimes referred to as Ivy Hoover. A long way from the Mississippi plantation in D.C., where William and Elizabeth are living with their son John T. Hoover, he's now grown, and he has a son named Dickerson. Dickerson ends up purchasing a slave by the name of Annie, who was mixed race but was able to pass as white. He moves her to D.C., he marries her, and they begin a family. Here's an actual picture of Annie and Dickerson Hoover. The only issue is that Annie was a slave from the plantation where Ivy had been, and she was in love with him. So anytime Dickerson's grandfather, William Hoover Sr., would have his brother up from Mississippi into D.C., his brother would also bring Emily and Ivy. And during that time, Ivy and Annie began a love affair, and they allegedly had J. Edgar Hoover. Let me break it down. Elizabeth Hoover had a daughter named Emily Allen by her father, who was Felix Allen. She was then sold and made to marry William Hoover, and she gave birth to a son by the name of John Hoover. Emily ended up being sold to someone named Christian Hoover, who was William Hoover's brother. Christian Hoover had two sons who S.A'd Emily, and from Christian's S.A. assault against Emily, she had Ivy or Ivory Hoover. John T. Hoover went on to have Dickerson Hoover, and Dickerson Hoover married a mixed woman by the name of Annie Hoover, who he purchased from the plantation where Ivory Hoover was. Annie and Ivory continued their love affair during the visits, and they had a child named J. Edgar Hoover. Now, this was during a time where there was a law passed that said if you had even one drop of black in you, you were black. Meaning if any of your ancestors was black, you were considered black. And J. Edgar Hoover, according to sources, mother was both black and white, father was both black and white. Dickerson allegedly knew about John Edgar Hoover being Ivy's child and not his. Eventually, Dickerson went crazy, and when he passed away, Annie moved right in with Ivy. But allegedly, and according to oral stories, J. Edgar Hoover found out about his true identity when he was a teenager. And when he was sent to live with Ivy and his sister, and they knew about what was going on, they say that John Edgar Hoover did away with him, sent him on to glory, to the upper room. Yeah, his biological daddy and his biological sister. He also allegedly destroyed his birth records as well as census records that show him in the household with black people. As he got older, not only did he target black people, but he also targeted the gays, putting their names in systems, causing them to get fired from their jobs based on their orientation, which is insane. Especially due to the fact that he vehemently denied the existence of organized crime, because my bosses had pictures like this of him with his friend who he was with for a very long time, and he left his entire estate to. So to sum everything up, J. Edgar Hoover's mother was allegedly a slave. And so was his grandmother and his great-grandmother, so much so that she came directly from Africa, while he ran around trying to put a stop to black liberation. And after all of this, friends, Mr. J. Edgar Hoover passed away in 1977 from high blood pressure. Well, friends, I really hope I ain't got y'all up in too much of a tizzy, and I'm going to call you back later on, okay? Bye.